Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now we are joined by Arwin, Neil, 10th Man, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
What do you say? What do you say? What do you say?
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to have you all. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth or Earth curve?
No, not. They don't even have it. They say you can't see it.
It's over there. But if you have a higher resolution limit, then suddenly it's not over there. It's further away. So it's always out of reach, basically.
So, Arwen, how does a physical object like that keep moving?
Refraction?
What's that?
The bending of light around a presupposed sphere?
Do we always have to deal with it?
Sorry, just one minor correction. That's terrestrial refraction.
I'm getting there. Do we always encounter it? Arwen, do we always encounter it when looking at the horizon?
Well, things do always seem to disappear within it, which in a geometric model would be behind it.
Okay, so does it affect the radius then? Would it change if it was 2 hours later you looked at it, or a day later?
I don't know. I think that the R value within terrestrial refraction is kind of a set number. So I don't think it actually changes.
Well, how did they get that number?
What has to be there?
Well, you'll need a flat plane for that.
Of course.
What do you mean it has to be there? It has to be there if you presume a what?
Well, the Earth has to be a ball.
Okay. Why does it have to be a ball?
Because my teacher told me that in school.
I love it.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No. No Earth-based Coriolis observed. No spin.
We wouldn't expect to see any spin because of conservation of stationary momentum.
I was thinking about this yesterday, and on a roundabout, right? There's that thing we watch on the video. You throw the ball, and the person across from who's throwing the ball doesn't catch it, right? The other person catches it, right? So when I'm outside playing ball with my boys, we make like a triangle shape. I'm in the middle. One's to the left, about 20 feet away. One's to the right of him, 20 feet away. So that means when I throw the ball to my son on the left, if the Earth was spinning, shouldn't the other guy catch it?
Jesus, your mic is horrendous.
Using my phone.
Yeah. Look.
Shouldn't the other guy catch it, though, if the Earth was turning?
To answer your question, right, what you're describing or asking about is a drift. A not actual drift, as a ball moves in a straight line and somebody rotates beneath it. The person rotating beneath it will have it seem to deflect. And you're describing whether or not it'll be caught by the person next along in the roundabout, right? But what... the claim has just come from Arwin that it doesn't drift because it conserves momentum. Now, inaccurately, he said angular, which would mean that the velocity it's retaining is the spin. So
No, I didn't.
Did
I
you
said stationary momentum.
not? Oh, my bad.
Right? That's
No, I'm
why
just-
we don't expect to see
Either way,
drift, because it's stationary
either
momentum.
way. Sorry, Arwin. Either way, regardless of Arwin's terminology, if it's retaining the momentum of the platform that's spinning, it's not drifting. Yeah, this is the magic trick that our anti-flat Earth opponents pull when asked about deviation. The flat earther points out that there isn't any, and the anti-flat earther says, we wouldn't expect to see any. It's like, yeah, you would. The globe says there'll be drift. There isn't any. Don't tell me how we wouldn't expect to see it because I've pointed out there isn't any. The globe claims there will be. There just isn't.
But on a roundabout, you do see it. Well, you see it. It's not actually curving, but it appears like it's curving. That's what I'm trying to say.
If you're sat on a roundabout, spinning around, and somebody tosses a ball over the top of the roundabout, the ball being tossed, we will work on the assumption that it moves in a perfectly straight path. Okay? Now, if instead of over the roundabout, you throw it through the roundabout, i.e. through the gaps where there aren't any people, yeah? There's a chance that somebody rotating will intersect the trajectory of the ball and hit it. Now, when it's thrown, they weren't in the way, but when it gets to the roundabout, they are, because they're spinning. So they intersect the ball. Make sense? Well, from your position on the roundabout. So instead of seeing the ball travel straight, we now look at the ball from a moving platform. When you see it from a moving platform, your vantage point would suggest that the ball that's thrown from off the roundabout curved towards your path when it intersected it and hit you. Oh no, it curved towards me. No, it didn't. You rotated towards it. The illusion that the ball curved towards you is the Coriolis effect. So, by juxtaposition, Earth claims to have Coriolis effect. That would be Earth claims that you will see things not attached to the spinning Earth seem to drift from your vantage point. That would mean that you look up at an aeroplane, and from your vantage point on a claimed to be turning Earth, you go, oh, look, that plane looks like it's curving. Now, in reality, it's not actually curving, it's moving in a straight path. It just looks like it's curving because you are rotating beneath it. The problem is that if you are observing Coriolis, as the globe claims, to see a plane seem to drift because you rotate beneath it, then you are rotating beneath an aeroplane. And if the ground's rotating beneath an aeroplane, then a flight from Charlotte, North Carolina to Los Angeles would only take an hour and a half because the ground's rotating beneath the aeroplane. That doesn't happen. It takes about 4 or 5 hours, depending on the wind. Well, that's down to no drift being observed. The ground is not rotating underneath anything for us to observe drift. That long convoluted explanation leads on to the anti-flat earth rebuttal, which is we wouldn't expect to see the drift the globe's claiming because we've got Coriolis drift. We wouldn't expect to see Coriolis drift, says anti-flat earther. So, like, why are we talking about Coriolis drift then if we're not expecting to see it?
All I'm trying to say is, 1 second, Tent. All I'm trying to say is, what happens on the roundabout? When I get off and do it on the stationary Earth, it doesn't happen because Earth is not turning. That's all I'm trying to say.
Well, you stop the roundabout in the same example. So in my example, you throw a ball through a gap in... There's 5 people on the roundabout, or 6 people to make it even with a nice gap. And you throw the ball through the gap. It moves straight. You watch it on the roundabout. Travel between you and the people opposite in a straight path. Why? Because you're not turning. Ergo, no drift to observe. If Earth's turning,
So I take it Wolf.
so we can move on. If Earth's turning, there will be Coriolis effect. It's the claim the globe Earth makes. We've all heard it, right? Coriolis effect. That's what globe Earth's claiming. There isn't any. That's it.
So I take it Wolfie's not getting a call from the tower.
Ground control to Major Clown Show. There is a man observing you from a non-inertial turning reference frame. Please correct your path immediately so it looks straight to him. Do you get those calls, Wolfie? You stupid idiot.
I just think it's plain and simple. The thing is, I play ball with my kids every day, and I was just thinking, whatever happens on that roundabout, it should happen when I get off it too, but it doesn't. So therefore, Earth is not turning.
Well, it's more the fact that in my example with the ball passing through the people, the ball travels straight, right? But if you spin the roundabout, the ball looks like it's curving. That's the drift. It's still travelling straight. It just looks like it's curving because the people on the roundabout spin beneath the ball that's tossed over the top. Well, in that example, that's analogous to an aeroplane. The ball is the aeroplane, travelling in a straight line with the people on the turning Earth watching it seem to curve. That's the apparent drift in Coriolis. Apparent drift. Wolfie 6020, who is a certified pilot, thinks that he has to correct for that apparent drift. What an utter moron! Now, it's really, really joyful for me as a flat earther to tell Wolfie 6020, who's an anti-flat earther, that he is fundamentally retarded, because he doesn't understand that not actual deflection of a ball or an aeroplane in his example, when travelling straight and appearing to drift from the ground, well, that appearing to drift doesn't have to be accounted for, because it's not actually happening. Wolfie doesn't understand the Coriolis, though, so he has to have it explained to him by flat earthers. Don't you, Wolfie? That would be me, the flat earther, Nathan Oakley, explaining to you, Wolfie 6020, a complete idiot, pilot, what Coriolis actually is. Not actual deflection. That's the drift that Wolfie thinks he has to correct for because he's stupid.
So there is Coriolis, just not Earth-based Coriolis.
Coriolis is a real effect you can observe from the roundabout if you toss a ball that moves in a straight line. Yeah, Wolfie, the ball's moving in a straight line, right? It's not actually drifting. Ground control to major idiot. Need to correct for the not actual deflection. No, it just moves in a straight line. You can see it seem to drift if you spin beneath it. That's a real effect called Coriolis. Globe Earths claim to have that. We just don't ever observe it. And if we did, Wolfie's flight would be shortened because the ground would be turning beneath his plane.
You know what's crazy? Usually the takeaway from this is because they say the air is moving with the earth. Most people take that as, yeah, because you can Google that and find that. But you can also find sources saying that there would be drift, which is contradictory to them trying to say, well, you wouldn't see any because the air is moving with the earth. Well, so they actually do make the claim. You can find the claim, and obviously no one sees any drift. There's no helicopters, planes, or any pilots whatsoever in doing anything but flying in a straight path. So it's really ridiculous.
Yeah, and shockingly, because it doesn't happen, the sources that you will find citing what globe Earth Coriolis is will be littered with doublespeak. And the people reading it, who don't understand it, will be littered with cognitive dissonance and apologetics for the nonsense doublespeak that they're faced with. Meanwhile, Coriolis is merely the not actual deflection observed from a non-inertial turning reference frame of an item moving through an inertial reference frame. That's what Coriolis effect is, and globe Earths claim to have it. It doesn't, so you find a load of citations and wiki entries that are total doublespeak. Yeah, that's right, Eli. So shout out to my show that's going to come out on, I believe it's Sunday. So one of the last shows that we covered when we first covered this particular aspect, and Anthony Riley went to a snippet that showed Wolfie describing him correcting for the drift. You stupid idiot, Wolfie! Ha 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 ha! Yeah, that's got trimmed out and it'll come out on Sunday. Normal debate time, live debate time. That clip will come out on Sunday, 2 p.m. UK. Should we move on with housekeeping, or is there anything else on Coriolis? Any evidence of the distance to the sun? Has it crashed? Has my computer died?
No, Nathan, there's no evidence of any distance to the sun. No, sorry.
Morning, guys.
I think the response you're looking for is, you'll need a flat plane for that. Where's John when you need him?
That's correct.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Well, they had a model, then they had a method of attaining whether that model would be true. Then they tested it. Then it turned out that every prediction was wrong. P waves and S waves.
P waves and S waves. So that's definitely not evidence of a molten iron core then. That's their failed claim using P waves and S waves.
Well, at least they gave it a go and failed miserably.
So you're saying a failed, miserable attempt to prove stuff with predictions that don't come out as you predicted is better than nothing?
Yes, a fallacy is better than nothing.
That's not a fallacy. That's just data that showed how wrong you were when you made your prediction. Not even a scientific prediction.
Somebody said to me that it's like a sonogram, that they give Earth like a sonogram. That's how they're.
That's right.
Well,
Yeah, primary waves and secondary waves, the return signals. That's what you're talking about, right? What's bounced back. And they know what they're going to get, right? Until they do it and dig, 12 kilometres and never get it right on the way down, all the materials they thought they would go through, they didn't. They thought they'd go through iron and they went through water, etc., etc.
Was it a boy or a girl?
3 boys.
Dingleberry.
A dingleberry.
Oh boy.
Any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle from a curved baseline?
I'd like to see it happen.
Well, if you just presuppose what you're measuring is curved, but you actually utilize the flat nature of it, it can still work.
That's total doublespeak. There is no flat nature to a curve. So what nature of a curve are you going to use as flat when it has no flat nature to it, Arwin?
Well, the actual observation, right?
But that hasn't got any curve either.
I know, which is why you can use it.
So which curve are we using then?
Use
The curve we're not seeing, or the curve we're not measuring, or the curve that won't give us an angle? Which one?
Well, you see, you don't have to deal with the curve, right, to do it.
You do if the globe Earth is the debate we're having, and we are, with this show's called Flat Earth Debate, and the Western worldview is that we're on a spherical surface, Arwin. So you don't have to, but welcome to Flat Earth if you don't.
I know how.
Go on.
Take your measurements from the center of the Earth.
Oh, yeah.
And then you'll
Center of Earth button engaged.
Nathan, can you go to the image I put in Master B for this question?
Told you guys, it's right next to the turbo boost.
The center of Earth button's next to the turbo boost button. Is this the black and
Maybe
white
you could
picture
take your measurement from the center of ball Earth using P waves and S waves.
If you say so. Right, is this the black and white image that you wanted me to put up?
Yes. This is comical. So you see a guy with a quadrant to the left, and then a person to the right, kind of like a theodolite type of thing. So here we go. Image from the title page, Bunny Castle's Treatise on Plane and Spherical Trigonometry. In the drawing, one gentleman is measuring the height of a church spire, presumably in preparation for a plane trigonometry problem. The other is measuring the altitude of the sun for a spherical problem. Western Archives, Western University. We've been through this. These are angle measuring devices that need a flat baseline.
Yeah, they're both doing the same thing. So they're both measuring a flat plane for an angle. The one on the left isn't doing it for a sphere. He's doing it off a plane.
The tool itself can't work without a flat baseline.
Very good, very good. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
The universe is the container.
No. The universe is the area of volume that the gas would expand into if we had outer space. We'd all be dead. It's not a container, it's an availability of volume.
But there's a gradient.
And
into eternity.
that's a delta of the gas pressure that you'd have to have in the first place, which requires it to press on something for it to
Right.
develop that delta of
But
a
there
gas
is
pressure
gas
gradient.
pressure. There is gas pressure in the universe, right? It just is more thicker here at ground level.
Ergo, we must have a container.
Yes, the universe is the container.
Right, but the claimed universe in the heliocentric model is absolutely vast, and that would be your V in terms of your standard gas law and the availability of volume that the gas could fill. Well, that would mean we didn't have any gas to breathe based on that volume, Arwin.
Well, maybe the distribution of the gas within the volume is not as straightforward as we would typically experience it here on Earth when we simulate something like that.
No. Whenever we simulate something like that, no. All simulations will require containment, Arwin.
I know.
So we've got to have a
I'm
container.
not denying that.
Well, so back to this. Arwin's just decided that he's going to seem like he's arguing when actually he's agreeing with me.
Oh, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, if you just see the universe as a giant container, then the problem is technically solved. Yeah, sure, there's still a bit of a gradient oddity, right? Nothing you can't overcome.
So you're just relabeling the word container with the word universe. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Arwen, this universe of yours, would that also contain the vacuum?
Well, I think that the vacuum might have simply been a bit over-exaggerated, based probably on they wanted us to believe it was a vacuum, because then it would be a lot harder for anybody even to imagine that they could get through that, right? Nightmares of vacuum is vacuum death, decompression, spaceships. Oh, it's so scary, right? But maybe it's just not. Maybe it's just like in Spaceballs, right? Where they simply pop out the ladder and climb down.
So a container.
Nathan, can you repeat the question?
Oh, gosh.
Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Thank you.
No, and that's untestable, right? But it doesn't mean that there's no outer space. It's just probably not as vacuous as we were told.
No, outer space is a vacuum in the heliocentric model, and it is fake, because if the sky was a vacuum, as outer space is described, then the gas we breathe would fill that space. Ozone, bro, says Fibrotes. Thank you very much for the super chat, really appreciate it.
But I'm saying maybe it is filled, right? Who are we to say? Maybe it is actually filled. It's just...
Okay, so back to the volume.
Just
based
tell
on
us
that, the tiny little speck of dust that is the globe Earth in the heliocentric model would have to be responsible for the gases that permeate through the entire known existence of that vast model called outer space, right? No, Arwin. If the sky was a vacuum, the gas we breathe would fill that space. We would all be dead. Ergo, space is fake. There must be containment.
Sorry, Ted.
I agree. I'm saying there is containment and there is no vacuum.
Okay, thank you.
They got it wrong, just like the distance of the sun. They got it wrong all the time.
There could be some outer space just less vacuous than we think or are led to believe. Well, no, outer space is a vacuum. That's what it's described as. So yeah, don't bandy words with me, Arwin. I know your game.
They're wrong.
We know they're wrong. That's just agreeing with me.
Just like Neil deGrasse Tyson is wrong about his Coriolis football. It's just wrong, right? Just because they're wrong doesn't mean it is all wrong. It just means that for some reason they put up really incompetent people as their priests.
God, yeah, he's in a funny mood, isn't he? You've been at those funny mushrooms again.
I don't need mushrooms.
Have you been watching the Amber Heard case too?
No, I'm just
the problem is, Arwen, the point that you're making is like is there any evidence of gas pressure without a container? You said no, and then you started to talk about this world in which we actually apply an understanding of gas pressure with containment. You know.
Yeah,
with words like
the whole universe is a container.
So but you're derailing the show while agreeing that you can't have gas pressure without containment, as if anyone's going to disagree with your point ultimately that you have gas pressure without container, and it's not what they said in the heliocentric model.
Chocolate said
They
what's
got
the
it wrong.
universe.
I
So we
just
should
don't
move
want the
on.
globe
He was
model
talking,
to
hello,
be
hello. Eli was
put
talking
into
to
false
Arwin.
dichotomy.
Just 1 second. Your reply just needs to be heard. Yes, go ahead, Arwin.
I just don't want the heliocentric model to be put up to this false dichotomy constantly, right? Yeah, there's a lot of silly things said about the heliocentric model, a lot of dumb things, right? They even conjured up a globiolis effect and put it all over the internet. But it's just, I don't know why they do it. It's just obstructionist. They just don't want people to understand how the Earth is actually a globe. So they just make it look like it's all just stupid, and then people latch onto that, and it just ruins everything. I think that the Earth might still be a globe somehow, and the universe is
What?
just filled up with gas.
You're not serious, right?
Are you
He's
serious,
just
Arwin?
antagonizing us. He's just antagonizing
You can't disprove terrestrial refraction.
You see, told you.
All right, goodbye. Next question.
Next
What?
question. Yeah, I don't know why he's in a funny mood today. But either way, there's over 100 people watching, so obviously somebody likes it. Please share the show, and a massive thank you to all of you who have shared already. There's only 100 plus people watching because people share the show, so if you've just joined us, a very warm welcome. Please smash that share button. Hopefully we'll get to 200 people. Come close in the last month or so you never know. Please share the show.
Yeah, I'm in a bit of a funny mood because I got some really dumb ballers in my chat. Probably not Sean Hawkins this time, and every time they do that, they make me go Baldwin because it's like, I'm so embarrassed for you guys. You're such terrible globe believers. You're so stupid. Why don't you get creative and actually help build this thing, right? That's what you're supposed to be doing. If you believe in the ball, you got to build it. You got to
Make
build
sure
how it works.
Make sure they start from a flat plane.
Build it, they will come.
Yes, Neil, we know. Yes, the Earth is flat. It's all based on flat. Yeah. That doesn't mean the globe's not real.
If you violate the angle you use to measure it, so you take your elevation angles from Polaris and then you transpose them onto a sphere surface, like the arc of the tool that you've used to measure them was actually the ground you were standing on, even though the ground you were standing on must be flat to get an angle, and you're going to bend that angle after you've measured it. No, Arwin, no. But for amusing though this mood is.
I don't do that.
No, but that's what the globe does. Like, this is your responsibility. Bloody hell, Arwin. Let's move on. Where were we? Any evidence of the R value? This will probably get the exact same reaction.
Hey, I was still
Arwen
talking.
just said the globe is identifying as flat.
Basically.
An R value is not something you can identify as being flat. It's the basis for
No,
a
it's not.
sphere.
No, the globe doesn't identify as flat.
Sorry, this is
No.
not Trans Globe Show. It's tell
Right,
us,
no, but it's flat earthers identifying as globe earthers,
it's the other way around.
right?
It's
Because the
no.
globe is the virtual part, is the make-believe part. The Earth being flat is the actual part. You don't think you're a flat Earth as a glober. You're just not really a glober. You're a flat earther thinking you're on a globe.
I think it's the other way around. So if you want to compare it to transitioning in any way, then it's the other way around. They actually are globe believers. That deep down, that's what their paradigm's been cemented with. That's why they're bracing against us. So they are globe believers. Believers being the most important word in that description. Well, they identify as flat earthers when they come to us and say, you know, it looks so flat, I can use it to get an angle. Or the plane I draw on top of my globe Earth that I won't be using for the angles, flat and could be infinite. And things of that nature. You know, for a time, they're identifying as flat. Should we move on? R value
Okay,
then?
I get it.
Nobody gonna give it me? R value? Anybody?
Well, I was going to correct you on something. There was an airline called TWA, Trans World Airlines, but it's out of business.
Yeah, they'll
As
leave
for
a
the
flat plane.
R value, you can't measure it because of terrestrial refraction. Makes optical measurement impossible, so you can only derive it based on celestial angle derivation.
Yeah, that's an interesting way. Arwin's just phrased it in a complete reverse way that I've heard it. He's saying you can't get R because of terrestrial refraction. And I was almost going to step in and correct him, but then he went on to redeem himself completely because paradoxically it works both ways, doesn't it? In other words, you can state it that you can't get R because of terrestrial refraction. Why? Well, it includes R. That's perfect,
Yeah,
Darwin.
but you can still
That's so much more
derive it,
consistent.
right?
That's brilliant.
Well,
But you can
that's not the
still
reason.
derive it, though.
Did everyone spot
From
the
length.
subtle difference in terms of how much faster that makes that statement to make? You can't acquire an R value because of terrestrial refraction.
Yeah, you can only
Right.
derive the R from the refraction.
But the refraction
No, you
includes
can't
R.
derive it from the
there it is. Hold on,
refraction.
Arwin. Just thank you, Byron. Yeah, perfect. But the refraction you're talking of includes R.
Yeah, that's why you
Yes.
can derive it.
No, you can't derive something from a formula that literally invokes it. That
Exactly.
doesn't work like that.
It's
But you
paradox.
can still derive it from the celestial angles, right? The equator length. It's not measuring, but it's the only thing we got.
Well, it's based on a derivation that has a presupposition attached before you even make the measurement. But yes, I agree with you, Arwin. I just like the fact that in a tete-a-tete, that gets wrapped up real quick. You can't get your R value because of terrestrial refraction. That's just so beautiful. What was your response, Brian, to that?
My response, well, you can subtract it from the refraction.
But the refraction includes the R value. Bang, over, done.
And that's why you can subtract it.
No, it's paradox. You can't
That's
get
right.
it if it includes it. How are you going to measure it if your refraction value includes it? End of argument.
Yeah,
You can't get it. It's the Arwinian paradox.
Yeah,
But you can still derive it another way, which is very long-winded.
that may be. I'm just wrapping up the Arwinian paradox off the back of the Black Swan. It's just that tends to go back and round and round in circles because you can't summarise it so quickly or succinctly as Arwin's just done. I don't think he intended to. It just came out in a different order today. But glad it did.
well, what I was going to say is you can't derive R from the ground due to the tangent plane.
Yeah? If they're going to claim that that's what you're actually dealing with, and they do at the moment, then again, that's the same principle when Rufy decides that he's going to invoke a geometric horizon. Precisely, Brian. Shout out to Mike808 for hitting the super chat. He says, I'm forever on Team Arwin. I totally agree. Arwin's ace. Dick.
Yeah, how are you supposed to derive R when you're constantly dealing with a tangent plane? Hayden? I mean, what do you expect people to do?
Yeah,
You're going to have
exactly.
to derive it a different way.
Yeah, when you've got a big tangent plane. How's that geometric horizon working out for you there, Rufy?
But you don't need that though, because you're not trying to measure the horizon or anything.
Or correct dip from it or anything. Yeah, they are. I mean, that's precisely what they're doing dip corrections.
No,
Yeah,
you don't.
that's why
measure
they're
the
drawing out.
horizon.
Yeah, that's why they're
You
drawing
can't
out.
use the
Just let
horizon
me
to
correct
measure
you.
R.
Oh God. Yeah, that's what they're doing at the moment, Arwin. They're drawing out straight lines to a geometric physical tangent point, formerly known as Earth curve. Aren't you, Rufy? Maybe you'll join us one day and tell us all about it. Yeah, you can bet your bottom dollar we won't be doing that.
They're just terribly behind, right? They're still stuck in these old argumentations when they know they can't use the horizon to establish Earth curve or the radius value. And they just don't want to let it go because it's just that time when it seemed so straightforward, right? You could just do it right there. Well, you can't. I'm sorry. The globe Earth world is just not that straightforward as you would want it to be.
Well,
It's
how
not.
did they measure it? How did they measure it, Arwen?
Truth is always
They
super
don't.
complicated,
You can't
isn't it,
measure
Arwin?
it.
Truth is always extra specially complicated, isn't it, Arwin?
It is.
Yes, indeed.
Did you say you can't measure it?
You can't measure a non-geometric horizon.
Well, if I was a baller, I would have been claiming that the dip correction proves the globe and proves R. And then, like, obviously, it would be put to me that most people would say that the geometric horizon doesn't exist, that the dip correction is a correction back to flat. But the actual response is the dip correction doesn't exist. It's a mathematical thing because the geometric horizon doesn't exist. But if I was a baller, I would be claiming that the dip correction proves R and proves the globe. Because from this just from a flat earther's point of view, that would be the best argument they would have
Oh, yeah.
at present. Yeah.
Oh, really? So when you say dip correction, you're talking about that straight line to a tangent point that's being corrected for in celestial navigation. You know, that's the exact same line used by Al-Biruni to measure the R value, though, don't you, Brian?
Yes, and that's why it would totally prove the globe.
Is that so? You see, on screen, just by pure chance right now, we've got, is it Andrew Thomas Young's depiction of how the light that you receive from point H to point O is bent. I mean, that's not a tangent point. I mean, Al-Biruni's measuring the line from O to G, something he cannot see. I mean, what is it, no Atmo day? So here's the justification for how lines to the horizon will always be and can only be bent on a globe due to terrestrial refraction. There it is. It's on screen for you, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, the only problem with this is that to do this, you first need to derive the R value from O and G. And that's how it's described up here, because they've drawn a line of sight to the apparent horizon OG. So Andrew Thomas Young is under the misapprehension that there's an apparent horizon between O and G. That's a straight line, that is, Andrew Thomas Young. And a line of sight to it. No. The whole point of this diagram is to explain that the line of sight is between O and H. Yet to get there, he needs a line of sight to a second apparent horizon, OG, that we do not see. So how is he going to bend his line with an R-based refraction to get from O to H when he can't see from O to G? It can't be done. You can't derive an R value. And even if you could, that would be to say we ignored the always in effect never no Atmo day terrestrial refraction they claim in this diagram from Thomas Young, then we would still have the added problem that to get from O to G, you'd have to go up from S to O. And when Al-Biruni did that, he measured the height from S to O off a flat plane.
Yeah,
Nathan,
my
hang on, Brian. No, you continue, Nathan. Go to Master B, and I know Brian could officiate the slide just as well as anyone.
Well, I just want to say, as a baller, how I would argue the point would be that no, you don't understand, Nathan. All that has been corrected for with the dip correction. We're correcting the refraction. It's a refractive correction back to flat, or back to, like, I wouldn't say flat, but I'd say it's a refractive correction back to, it's a 7/6 correction. I'd be trying to bring things back away from the geometric horizon back to what we actually see. But the whole point would be to still keep the geometric horizon and the dip correction alive.
Sorry. Okay. Let me just respond to that. Sorry. What geometric horizon? Keep what geometric horizon alive? How's that geometric horizon working out for you, Rufy? Alive and kicking, is it? Sorry, Brian. What geometric horizon?
Well, I don't want to be playing ball or Brian too much because I don't want to annoy you. But I would then say the one in the dip correction, Nathan.
And where's that? And where's that in reality to be correcting from it, Brian?
Well, due to refraction, we can't see it. That's where I.
Right.
So hold on, everyone,
see
shut up. So we don't see it. Why would we be correcting from something that we don't see? I don't follow, Brian. And even if we are, you say it's actually being corrected to flat.
Yeah, because we have an atmosphere, Nathan. You understand we have an atmosphere. That's why we're not going to see the physical geometry due to the atmosphere refracting everything.
No, we don't have sphere-shaped air, and we don't have light bending at a rate of the radius unless you can derive that bending light at a rate of the radius from the radius included in that value at 7/6R in standard form. You'll need an R value for that. You'll need a geometric horizon for that. And you've just told me you can't see it, Brian.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to keep this going because I don't want to annoy you or waste time on the show.
On the contrary,
but-
the guy who apologised for yesterday's show. No, Brian, you just don't want to be a baller.
Okay, I will then, but it's going to be a separate argument.
You'd make the
Oh, you're
horrible
making Arvin
baller.
guilty.
You
Guilty,
always start
jealous.
out with at-homing.
No, Brian doesn't do that. Unlike
Nathan,
you.
can you go to the last slide, the Master B?
Hey, look,
not
check
the
it
one
out.
had
You've been
up.
saved by 10th, Brian. You're off
Oh,
the hook.
no, I would have kept going if you wanted, but I just
I'm not saving them. I'm not saving them. Go to the very last slide of Master B, not the
Okay.
one that Eli put up.
Okay. Did
The
Brian make this?
refraction is based on the R value, Nathan. It's based on the R. That's what the refraction
What R
is.
value?
What R value? What geometric
that-
horizon?
The one they detail in the dip correction.
Well, you need a straight line to a geometric horizon to get it.
All right,
And we do have.
Now we got the image.
Hold on.
We got the image up.
Sorry. We do have a straight line. What is it? No Atmo Day?
But we have a straight line until the refraction is added in.
Ergo, we don't have a straight line to get to the geometric horizon to derive an R to bend the light at a rate of R then, Brian.
Well, it becomes bent after refraction.
So not straight
Well,
then. So no geometric horizon then. No tangent point then. No R value then. No bending light at the rate of R to justify your refraction. Actually, terrestrial refraction then, Brian.
Yeah, but you don't understand, Nathan, how we know.
That's it. You're done. He's cooked. Take him out. He's done. Right. I'm on the last slide. 10th.
Yeah, so you can see here on this last slide that they have a dingleberry Earth that's not necessary for celestial navigation. They have a solid line from the height of eye going to a horizon, which is their geometric horizon that doesn't exist, nor can be seen. But they have a dotted line of what an actual height of eye correction is in the dip correction of celestial navigation, which is to bring it down to sea level as seen by the dotted line. Now, of course, when they place this circle with a center of Earth radius line coming to the height of eye, they make you think this is all happening on a globe. But that's not a globe, that's a circle. And then when you hold a bubble sextant, you actually use the bubble as the horizon at your eye line. So that's parallel to actual horizon. If you had a bubble sextant, you would already establish a horizontal. But since you're using a mariner sextant and you're using the actual horizon, the height of eye comes down to whatever feet you're above sea level. So the two top lines work with the bubble sextant and the mariner sextant. The sun is over a flat plane. Everything underneath the dotted line is a joke.
I've forgotten where we are in housekeeping. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No, it's not possible to have scientific evidence for something that does not even have a defined effect in reality.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Gravity bends light.
Sorry, we just covered gravity. You didn't say a word.
Oh, sorry, I was just AFK for a second.
No, you can't. You can't have a correct hypothesis, scientific hypothesis from those fields. They can't test the effects they do experience or observe, I should say.
Yeah, they got phenomenons to look at all day, but what are you going to manipulate with any of those? We'll wait.
Yeah.
Well, you
will
can
be.
manipulate whether you can see it or not.
I can
That's
close
about
my
it.
eyes.
That sounds like manipulating
Sounds like-
yourself.
Sounds like blinking.
That sounds.
Sounds like blinking to me.
Yep.
That has happened on a couple of the shows. I think it was attributed to Gem Panda, but I wasn't personally involved. But yeah, you know, well, it's not a phenomenon. Nothing's happening. You're talking about a concrete noun. Yeah, but if I stop looking at it and I look again and it's there, right? Phenomena. So no, I take that as a no. No single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics.
Well, maybe an information based, but yeah, that's kind of pointless, right? Because it is naming, the naming of things. Now there could be potentially something experimented with, like, oh, how do we perceive some phenomenon out there if we alter the name somehow? But that's basically, it's more a psychology study than would be actual natural phenomena study of the celestial lights. So
Off a flat plane with angles.
The closest they got to it, when I say the closest, it's not close, right? But the closest they can get to a viable scientific hypothesis is celestial spectroscopy. And that's something that allows them to give a claim to what the stars are made of, this kind of thing, and claim the sun and stars are the same thing. They're all the stars. They have to. That's like a whitewash for them.
right.
It whitewashes over the fact that they don't have a viable scientific hypothesis and can't get one, because if they could, they'd have one, wouldn't they?
Yeah, but celestial spectroscopy, it's more like celestial colonoscopy, if you ask me.
That's excellent, Arwen. Yes, it is.
Especially with Uranus.
Yeah. You nailed it.
I think that's it. I think we covered all the housekeeping questions. 45 minutes into the show, 120 people watching. Thank you very much to all of you who shared the show. Got quite a few videos coming out, so if you're a member, you've probably seen all of them. And this morning, just before the live show started, and typically I started doing my technical stuff late because I was publishing a video to the members, and then a load of technical issues had happened. So there we go. There's no pre-show on this show, if you're wondering why. There was one recorded, but it was like 8 minutes long, so it's not even worth publishing. There was one story from One Deck about... actually, One Deck, are you there? Yeah, I'm here, like. What do you want? I'm hoping you can tell your story again.
Yeah, sorry for the delay.
You were telling us in the pre-show about the people you've communicated Flat Earth to while you're out and about doing your techie work. Can you regale us again, just on account of the fact that I'm not going to bother publishing the pre-show with the technical mic issues, and then that was literally the only thing of note in the pre-show?
Yeah, it comes from yesterday. We were speaking about maybe getting people more involved with the nature of the Earth being flat and not a globe. Now we've all been lied to, and how we can spread the truth. I do some DJing, and I get about a bit, doing a few gigs, and even I've started doing it, just going out for a drink and a meal. I wear my Flat Earth T-shirt now, or hoodie, and I'm finding a lot of people are coming up to me and asking me, am I a flat earther? I don't necessarily tell them I'm a flat earther. I just say I find it extremely difficult to believe I live on a spinning globe. And that seems to grab the attention a little bit more. And it strikes up a conversation. And I went out the other week with my Flat Earth T-shirt on, and about 15 people approached me. I wasn't approaching anybody or forcing the issue. People were just coming up to me and asking me about the subject. And I discussed it with them and dropped some of the issues that you guys have educated me on. And they was very interested, and I think they've gone away and thought about it and looking into it. So I'm going to continue to do that. I may even get some leaflets made up or cards advertising the show, Nathan.
Perfect. I mean, that sounds wonderful.
Put more people onto it.
Excellent. It's also a perfect segue into another show that I've edited. Again, this is the one that I published just before we started live to the members. I don't know when I'm going to slip it into the normal schedule, because I've just got a lot of material. I've got good panel, good Discord server at the moment. It means there's lots of stuff for me to edit into videos. But that particular discussion, which was about an hour long, it took me about 5 or 6, maybe 7 hours yesterday, all the way into the middle of the night editing that video. I'm knackered as a result. But not that I'm moaning. I love what I do. It's fantastic. But that particular discussion was about, what do we do next? What's the game plan moving forward? And it was a very, very interesting discussion with fairly heated at various stages. But there was some useful input from various different people on both Discord and G+ panels. And the discussion, after editing it occurred to me that one of the points that I was making, and I did go to the extent of labouring this in the edit, I won't lie, was that a lot of the things that were being asked for, we do here. And I'm not saying this is solely down to me because it's my channel. It is more down to the fact that I've got such a fantastic panel and an enthusiastic group of people who, when they come together as great minds, can disseminate information to people who are watching that can, as Wandex just detailed, go on to be good ambassadors for the subject matter, which, in conclusion of that particular video, was what you really need to do. You don't need to be a preacher, you just need to know what's what about the subject. And where can you acquire that? Well, shockingly, right here on Nathan Oakley 1980 channel. I'm going to do, not maybe a full shout out, but maybe a full shout out to the Patreons. So during that discussion, although I edited it and perhaps regret how I opened up the video edit with this particular point, was to say that I do this, and I've got a family to feed. Give me money rather than looking to open a church and invest in that, when there's already people that are out there actually doing it and they do need supporting, in this case me. So I'm like, well, why not on the live show point out that you've made an edited video about the subject of how we can develop Flat Earth going forward to reach the masses. In some people's opinion, that was what the overall game plan should be, and potentially what would be involved in doing that from a business perspective. So we had a guy on, I've forgotten his name, something Truth, and he was saying, oh, well, I used to help businesses, and what I would suggest they do is look at these aspects of business to decide how you should promote the platform and build it so that people buy what you're selling. Now, what are we selling? Well, we aren't really selling here because we're training here. We're training people how to sell Flat Earth. And that's the core of the basis of this particular platform. And it's done in a debate format because that's far more entertaining, and etc, etc. I've done all the considerations of how it's going to be presented and packaged to an audience in that regard. But I'm not shy about e-begging. In other words, this is what I do for my living. And I'm very proud to do it in the subject matter arena that we have found ourselves. But by the same token, when everyone's around me saying, we need to raise funds for what? Well, to get the quality of the dissemination really high. You're like, I do that, give me the money. So that show comes out, but I'm prefacing the fact that I started off with that kind of exasperated tone without any context around it right in the intro, which is to say, I do that, give me money. And without the context around it, maybe it doesn't sound as good as I would potentially hope now I've watched it back and published it to the members. Not that I'm going to be asked to change it, there's going to be other videos to edit. But I'm using this to wrap up Wandeck's point that he's going out as a good ambassador, and also that I haven't shouted out my Patrons because there's going to be no pre-show because of technical issues. So shout out to everyone who supports me on Patreon. Again, as that links back into the fact that I'm saying I need support. This is my living, and if I don't get it, the show dies on its arse, as do I. I'll be out stacking shelves or driving a lorry again, or whatever it was I was doing previously. Probably not a rep, I'm too old. But I can now train people to be good reps, and that's how you expand the subject. That's how you get people to be more accepting of it if you know what's what about it. It's hard to argue with someone who knows their stuff when they can detail how you use a flat plane to develop a sphere in the manner that we do here. But, like I say, we're not necessarily expecting you reach the tip of the spear in this debate, but get the information that you may disseminate to the next man as good as it can possibly be. In other words, be a good ambassador. So that's that show. I don't know when it'll come out, so I don't know what time to recommend you go and look at it. If you are a member, again, they're the people who support me in this endeavour of dissemination of information. You can go and watch it now. And thank you very much for being a member. Thank you very much for being a patron. Thank you very much to all of you who smashed the super chat. I really appreciate your support, because without it, there wouldn't be a show. There wouldn't be any dissemination of the high quality of Flat Earth information, which I'm not ashamed to say it is. It's of the highest standard that there is. So, please support this show, smash the super chat, and all that good stuff. Right, there you go. That's my plug under what 3 minutes. Anybody got anything to add?
That's what a few of us were trying to say yesterday, that's what you do.
Do.
And now, do. I have to ask Armin a question now that he's been in Baldwin mode. Armin, how did they discover Uranus?
Talking of do and Uranus, have you also been watching the Amber Heard trial? Because after Johnny Depp's testimony about her leaving a dump in his bed on his side of the marital bed, quite literally, right? The hashtag me poo, because she's used the Me Too movement to slander him, started trending on Twitter. Hashtag me poo.
I need Arwen to answer my question.
All right. Well, they discovered Uranus through celestial colonoscopy.
That's a funny day today, isn't it? To Arwen mostly. I blame Arwen.
Was that Amber Heard testimony the turd?
Well, that's what she's been nicknamed. You're trying to get this pun in, and it's already been long done. So it's Amber Turd and the hashtag Me Poo movement.
Turd times the charm.
Turd times the charm.
But who's winning that case? I don't think Johnny Depp is doing good.
Who's winning? You got Johnny Depp who's had his finger chopped off by a crazy psycho woman throwing pots and pans and bottles of vodka at him to the point he loses a finger. He's on the stand cool as a cucumber detailing this and trying to be rattled by people saying, look, you swore at people about your bitch wife in a text message. I think he's doing pretty well.
No, but they're bringing his drug addiction in on it.
Oh, shocking. Film star that's a drug addict. Yeah, shocking. I mean, to be perfectly honest, when I heard his testimony, I was quite surprised to hear his spin on his drug use. Now, yeah, he's a movie star and he uses drugs. He's quite open about that. But their whole case is predicated on drug user equals wife beater. It's absolutely pathetic, in my opinion. But there we go. That's just my 2 cents.
What was she throwing at him, Nathan?
Pots and pans, vodka bottles. She threw a paint can at him, cups, you name it. She's a thrower.
Well, maybe that's where the line came from the movie, not the rum.
The rum diary.
Where's the rum gun? My wife threw it at me.
She pushed the door open while he was taking a shower. This poor guy, I understand his feelings. He's trying to get away from a fight, but she seemed to always want to fight this one.
There's no two ways about the story that's been told, right? And I'm sure it'll probably pad out slightly differently when she's on the stand. Sorry, anyone who tuned in for Flat Earth. It's just, I like to have a subject that is seriously devoid from Flat Earth. So if you're wondering, how have we got from Flat Earth and elevation angles and proving parallel planes and sky to Amber Heard having a dump on her marital bed and then throwing vodka bottles at her ex-husband now, Johnny Depp? Well, because there's very few subjects out there that, as I've just talked all about how I do it as my career, like most people, you want to kind of get away from that at some point. The problem on YouTube is almost everything is at some point going to turn into a flat earth bash. And you're like, oh, bloody hell, yet another channel. So I look for things that are very unrelated, mild interest in law. You know, I've been through a few court cases, so therefore I've got a mild interest in the subject. But that's it, right? So it's just interesting to see what's going on in that particular arena when you've got a vague idea what a psychopath is. And, you know, you can hear all the hallmark traits of somebody trying to escape, trying to lock themselves in the bathroom, get away, and this nutter banging on their door going, you're not going to escape my fury. I shouldn't laugh because it sounds absolutely horrible. I feel really bad for Johnny Depp, actually. It sounded horrible.
That's the point, isn't it, Dave?
The sideshow, the whole thing.
World of equality. And this is why I'm following it. In a world of equality, it's clearly being demonstrated the different standards that apply to men and women in terms of domestic abuse. If the Jew was on the other foot, he'd already be locked away.
Exactly. If he was the woman, he'd be in jail.
You want to hear
just
something
like Ghislaine
funny?
Maxwell. Like they'll put certain show trials up on for everyone to watch, like the Kenosha Kid or the Johnny Depp thing, and then other trials. We won't be talking about those.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Well, there is a connection.
Yes, like
there's a connection between the pots and pans flying. If the ground was spinning underneath the pots and pans, she would have never connected.
Amber Heard's vodka bottle disproves Coriolis deflection. Right on. Okay, I'm just going to do a couple of quick shout-outs. So, shout-out to Sebastian Tello. He says, greetings from Florida, and also Sensual Goat, who's the guy we've been talking about recently with the leaflet drops. There's a whole show pretty much spanned out from what you did, Sensual Goat. So I don't know if you realise that. I don't know if you remember, but check it out. But that is basically off the back of what you did. That's where the conversation direction went. I think you even got a mention. Yeah, you did. I kept it in. Right at the end, you get a mention from Neil. So there we go. So thank you very much, all of you, for the super chats. We've run over a little bit, but as we're talking about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, I'm tempted to keep the live show going just to talk about it, because we don't often span off the topic of flat Earth in the live show, do we? But what the hell, man?
I know why you're doing it.
Why?
So you can do it. It's for a clickbait thumbnail. I know your game.
No, actually, no. That wasn't the reason. No, I'm
I have a
genuinely
funny
interested.
story about
Another
trial.
idea about.
It is a good idea, though. I probably will now you've said it.
Yeah, that's what
See, celebrity trials go on for like a long time. So when I went to trial, I thought it was going to be the same thing, and I was done in one day. And I was like, "What? It's over?" He's like, "Yeah, that's it. Now you wait for the verdict." Boy, was I sweating bullets.
Okay. I mean, in terms of this trial, it just interests me because I cottoned onto it I think it was probably 3 years ago. It's been going on a hell of a long time. And
That's what I'm saying.
go on,
Yeah, a lot
what
of
were you
this
saying,
stuff
Neil?
is leaked out beforehand.
No, I'm saying that's what I'm saying. I thought it was going to be a long time. That's why I went to trial. That's why I testified. It was over in less than a week. I was on the stand for no
Thanks,
longer
we
than a
just had
half
all that.
hour.
Thank you, Neil.
That was
Yes.
shocking.
Yeah,
I'm
but
not a
you were
celebrity.
guilty,
Okay.
Yeah, but you were guilty, Neil.
No, I actually beat the case. I was found not guilty.
Well, that's probably why then.
So yes, it's just interesting because it's been nice and drawn out. Something to take my mind off the subject matter that I cover when I do want to unwind of an evening or whatever. So occasionally I'll stick it on and sit with my wife and we'll have a good old laugh about current affairs with celebrities. But as I say, I've got a mild interest in psychopathy, and there's lots and lots of traits there. Far be it from me to say or accuse in any way Amber Heard of being a psychopath. I don't know. I don't have an MRI machine. However, there's plenty of traits of this thrower and her general abuse in terms of what's been just detailed out there. And up until now, it was always in documented form with people like that Umbrella guy talking about it. And it's not the same as the person like this celebrity. And I've got no admiration for Johnny Depp. I don't care either way. That said, Amber Heard sounds quite a laugh, actually. Now I've heard some of the stuff she's done crazy, nuts. But I don't know, I find quite appealing sometimes, And she does do some pretty out there drugs, right? She's on mushrooms, she's on a lot of MDMA, she drinks a hell of a lot of booze. I mean, I bet she's wild.
A good night out.
Yeah, man, I bet she could throw the best parties.
Yeah.
What about if it comes out that it's used against Johnny Depp that he's a flat earther? Because he is or something.
Well, that's what I was most impressed with, whoever it was from Discord, to wheedle in Coriolis effect into that trial. And
that was class.
With validity, yeah, class. But when they throw it at him, he can go, well, when she was throwing these things at me, get a tacit admission, yeah, I had to move this way by an inch because of Coriolis.
So you could have someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson saying, as the vodka bottle flew through the air, it took a 1/4 inch deflection to the right and then took off his finger.
And then everybody
As I was trying to clean up the turd, I had to, when I was reaching for it, it was not where I thought it was because of refraction.
Yeah. If it wasn't for Earth turning, it wouldn't have chopped his finger off. That would be the logic behind it in the defence. So technically,
Or he would have lost the whole finger.
When she threw it, she was assuming that there'd be a Coriolis deflection that just didn't happen, and that's really what happened. So technically, we can blame globe Earth not turning on it. It's not as far-fetched as some of the defences we'll probably hear going forward in this particular instance. But there we go.
Dismissed. Case dismissed. Yeah.
It's as good a globe proof as I ever heard. Literally.
He is pretty cool let me tell you, on the stand, he's a cool cucumber boy.
Well, they're actors.
One of my favourite lines was, "Have you taken drugs with who's the guy? Marilyn Manson."
Hunter S. Thompson.
Well, Hunter S. Thompson's a different story, because when he talks about Hunter S. Thompson, which was in his opening, he talks about, and I believe him, you can't be shit-faced when you're acting. You know, you couldn't pull off Fear and Loathing, that Hunter S. Thompson's movie, if you're stoned. You can't do that. I mean, I'm a trained actor. I know what acting involves, and you can't be shit-faced. It's just not possible, you know, to pull off that sort of performance of being shit-faced, which is why it's ironic, and I get the point. But in the case of Marilyn Manson, so Johnny Depp's being questioned about whether or not he's got drunk with Marilyn Manson. He's like, yeah, we've drunk together. And he's like, well, have you done any other drugs? And he's like, I think he alluded to have taken cocaine with him or something along those lines. But then he says, have you taken any pills with him? And Johnny Depp, so you can see that he's just trying to remember, did I take any pills with him? And he's trying to remember. And then it comes to him, he's like, no, but I did give Marilyn Manson a pill because the guy wouldn't shut up. Just thought. And you're like, this guy's having a battle of cool, basically, the defense counsel. He's like trying to out-cool Johnny Depp. And it's like, are you totally delusional? You know what I mean? You're never going to... The jury are going to be swooning. The general public are going to be... It's Johnny Depp, right? But yet the thinks he's cool as a cucumber defence lawyers trying to have him over a barrel on being a drug addict, because being a drug addict means you beat your wife. And when he does so, he's getting stories out of Johnny Depp about how he's basically given Marilyn Manson a Valium to stop him talking so much.
You can see the members of the jury going, oh, cool.
Oh, isn't he cool?
That is rock and roll. And
exactly.
It's the worst poisoning of the well I've heard.
Well, exactly. Every time, that's the thing that endears him so much. Every time they try and poison the well. Oh, yeah, that was something I was going to talk about if Anthony was here. It's a shame he's not. The tactics that they use are very similar to debate tactics, right? For example, this is why I wanted to talk about this mostly, actually. The tactics that parallel what we see. So, he's doing well. The defence lawyer's grilling Johnny Depp about this drug use. And about, I think it's about an incident where he's either drunk or in rehab or something like that. And there's an airplane trip and he's getting him on the ropes, right? But then when he gets to the conclusion, which has got something to do with him lying on
about 18 months, right?
Yes, thank you, Neil. It's got something to do with him lying on an insurance document, where the insurance document for Pirates 5 or whatever says, have you taken drugs that were prescribed, illegal drugs prescribed or otherwise within the last 12 months? And he says no, right? Now, at this point, there's a bit of ambiguity, because at the incident that's been detailed by Johnny, it's less than 12 months. I don't know, it might be 8. Now, to you and I, so what, right? You're telling me no one's ever ticked a box on an insurance form and going, oh, fuck it, who cares? You know, yeah, of course. You know, and then just passed it back. So what? But the guy is trying to use this very weak point to have Johnny look a bit, you know, like a liar. So when it gets to that detail, you ticked yes here, didn't you? The what do they call him in claimant terms? I forgot what they call the claimant in the States. Plaintiff? The plaintiff's counsel, every time he's trying to get to this really important point that Johnny's lied, essentially true, by a couple of months on this form, they're saying, excuse me, could we just get a copy of this form as a form of courtesy? So the proceedings stop, the momentum stops, the defence counsel's fuming, he's storming back and forth, pacing up and down, because he's right on the cusp of having his point made, right? So then the proceedings start up again, and he's launching into the same question about this ticked box, and then another interruption by the defence counsel to get it redacted, where it says yes or no. It's got a black line through it, so they've got that removed, so that takes a little bit more time. Then there's another interruption from the plaintiff's counsel, because, hold on, this form might have some medical information that needs to be redacted. You're like, oh, this is a bit weak. Bloody hell, are they going to get in trouble over this? And next thing you know, she says, Because you made an order on it, didn't you, Judge, about it being very specific that we didn't have any medical details, doxing people again. She's like, oh, yes, we must take more time to make sure there's no medical information and all the redactions are correct. So that slows down the defence again. So he's still pacing back and forth. Then he finally, after all of this time, 5 minutes has elapsed. Maybe 7 minutes has elapsed, right? Does anybody remember the momentum for his monumental point that he's lied on this form? No. So then he asks the question, you ticked yes here, didn't you? And Johnny Depp replies, yep. And is there any impact? Nope. It's all been deflated by the prosecution's or the plaintiff's counsel. All tactics. So if Anthony was here, I'd now regale him with our story of how one of the reasons the debate took a turn at about show 100. Anthony kept pointing out that the tactics from our opponent's side on the Globe side would be when you were onto a winner and you're making your point and you're building your momentum, obfuscate the point as much as possible and let it segue off for as long as possible and then address the point. So it's not that you've just been a wanker and you've ignored the point. Do address it, but after all, the impact's been lost from the person trying to make the point. Even concede it completely at that point. Who cares? Because the impact gets lost. And that's precisely what we saw yesterday in terms of the weak, as it were, defence, trying to make something of what they've got, which is very little. They've got little to work with. I mean, in many ways, I do actually quite pity Amber Heard's defence team because they've got very little to work with, and what they have worked with, the scraps that they've got, I mean, they're really trying, and when they do, you're like, come on, you can build this momentum, you can do it, you can get him to admit he's a bloody liar, right? He ticked the form. And then all the sales have all the wind taken out of him just by a couple of clever questions here and there. You're just like, yeah, we see that, yeah. But you need a straight line, don't you? Oh, excuse me, can we just point out that you've interrupted? Etc. Go on, Neil.
Yeah, because he said he was clean for 18 months. That's what the guy was getting at. And on the form, it was only like 11 to 12 months. But he never got to get that point because she kept interrupting. She's really good, his lawyer.
Oh, they all are.
See, that's what Zanuck tried to do yesterday. And that's why muting is justified. Not to stop them from making a point, but to stop them from talking while you make a point. So he's talking about celestial navigation in the sextant, and at some point we get to the point where I said, yeah, it's established from the horizontal, and he's like, no, the vertical. And I was like, no, the horizontal. And he said, well, you're wrong, co-altitude, mute. I said, no. And then I went and I got a citation and I posted that in Master B. And so the citation says, instead, navigators use a sextant to measure the angle from the horizontal as seen in figure 1.2 below. So then he's like, yeah, but I'm talking about an aviator sextant. I was like, a bubble sextant? He's like, yeah, because you don't need a horizontal. So then I type the bubble sextant established horizontal. And what do you know? The bubble sextant, the aircraft bubble sextant measures altitude above a horizontal plane established by a bubble. And then the second one, what is a bubble sextant used for? And the sextant designed for air navigation, a bubble, like the one in the carpenter's level, determines an artificial horizon. So at that point, he's like, well, yeah, you establish a horizon, and then and I muted him, and I was like, yeah, but that's what you were arguing against.
Correct. But he
wanted to continue
about
to
Amber Heard and Johnny Depp.
No. That's beautiful. Thank you, Eli. That perfect parallel. So he's paralleling the obfuscation technique that I'm paralleling. So we've got a nice, concise, contemporaneous description of how I've paralleled it with example from Eli. Thank you, Eli. Excellent. Thank you for joining Sleeping Warrior. So there's a second example that I called Sleeping Warrior about, which is, I'll just make your comment known from the chat, actually, Anthony. You said rumpusing in court, basically, right? Yeah, like rumpusing. Yeah, that's what you said in chat, Anthony. Yeah. So rumpusing was what I was detailing when they interrupted with various different objections that were moot or mildly moot. Let's see if I can get a reaction out of Anthony.
Sorry, I was trying to find my active window. I've got about 50 minutes. I've done a rumpus where I've got about like 50 windows open, and only one of them has got the microphone unmute button. Yeah, tactics in court. It's watching them like. What was that tactical one that you told me about the other day when it was?
That's what I'm going to do now. Okay, so
yeah.
Well, nobody spotted this, and I'm glad we're talking about. And we're live, and I've just changed the title to Johnny Depp trial. Thank you very much for reminding me, Adam. So what happens is there's Amber Heard's current girlfriend, who is a journalist, on the front row of the defence bench, if you want to call it that. There's a couple of tables, and there's the public section with a bar between them. She's at the front of that bar, so she's not in the proceedings, but the assumption the judge said later was that she was part of the legal team. Now, at a particular point, there's a very key witness who's been in the Australia incident. I won't go into why she's important, but she's an important witness for Johnny, and she's being questioned. They interrupt her questioning, and the lead counsel walks up to asks if he can approach, and presents the judge a phone. And on the phone, there's a cropped image of a tweet that this girl who's on the stand being grilled or being questioned by, in this case, the claimant. I can't remember what the term is. Plaintiff. And they stop it to show the judge that she's tweeted about the case. That's what the judge is told. So then the judge, in her wisdom, very smart judge, asks a couple of key questions in terms of what she's seen about the case, rather than what the tweet she's presented with, claiming to be something she's tweeted about the case. She asks different questions that will get her excluded, and they do. She answers and says, "Oh, I've seen a few clips, and why wouldn't you? Any normal person with a TV or a phone would, even if you're being questioned, and you shouldn't, But she's honest. She answers. The judge knew she would. She gets excluded. Job's a good one based on this text or tweet, but the tweet has actually come from a year earlier in the case that's happened in the UK, and it's just had the date cropped off by Amber Heard's girlfriend from the stands. So the following day, all of the pro-Amber Heard people who are reporting on it say, hooray, this girl, who's Amber Heard's girlfriend, who presented this phony baloney evidence and interrupted the proceedings, is also getting kicked out. They're ordering her to be gone. Hooray! She can't come back. Okay, that's called a tactical foul. So you want to get a key witness like that, who's a makeup expert and a key witness in a particular area where there was very few of Johnny's friends around. You want her on the stand answering certain questions that now won't get answered. And what? The crappy journalist girlfriend who's clearly just being used as a useful idiot gets kicked out? Wowee, she wasn't even a witness. So a tactical foul was employed. And the rejoicing was that the ex-girlfriend has also been kicked out. So, hey, no, that was probably always the plan. She's lucky she didn't get any sanctions. But the point is, who cares if she does? She's not important to the case. But the person that she's influencing and getting kicked out for, or given the red card by a football analogy, is just a tactical foul. And again, Anthony, hopefully, will now give the example of a tactical foul with Geo Streber and the rumpus. Go ahead, Anthony.
You know
like
better.
50 windows open and that, like. Can't find the mute button.
It's not right either.
Sorry, I didn't realise I was on mute. Was it? I think it was Hank Hill. Was it Hank Hill, Nathan?
No, it was Geo Streber and Rumpus and Chris Berry or Brandon. I forget which.
It was Brandon Toy.
It was Brandon
Toy.
Brandon Toy. So Brandon Toy was talking with Geo Streber, or arguing with Geo Streber, about whether or not ETVOS effect or ETVOS effect was a real thing. And he'd asked for evidence, and Geo Streber presented a graph. And Brandon had said, where did you get the graph from? And it was basically computer generated from the model. It wasn't measured from real world. And Brandon had spotted that it was generated within the model, and it wasn't measured in real life. It was just generated as per their model. And he was about to say, hang on a second, that makes this reification. And Rumpus had spotted that Brandon was going to do that. So Rumpus stepped in, made a scene, and then he intentionally or accidentally, unintentionally, whichever, gets kicked out. Meanwhile, Brandon forgets what he was about to say, and the point gets lost. But had Rumpus not have interjected and made a scene and got kicked out, Brandon would have just said to GeoStreamer, hang on a sec, this is reification because this is not based on real world. And he would have won the point. But because Rumpus had destroyed the point that much by making that much of a scene and got kicked out, it's very much like the guy in court that basically makes a point in court about posting something on Facebook or whatever, getting kicked out, and then that point gets totally forgot, lost, diluted, destroyed. And that's tactics, isn't it? That we see it all the time with Rumpus and the mute button, where he continuously talks and talks and talks so that your point can't get made. It's just tactics, isn't it?
Absolutely. Even Tim Osman from the chat is more keen to hear about Johnny Depp, given that he's got no arguments for a globe Earth to defend anymore, given that nobody claims the horizon is Earth curve, end quote. When you've got pictures that say this is Earth curve with pictures of horizon to them, you know, that's embarrassing. You wouldn't want to talk about flat Earth. You'd much prefer to talk about Depp.
It's funny, normally Nathan would be very much against talking about stuff off topic, but for some reason he's inspired by this Johnny Depp case, which I have absolutely no interest in whatsoever. It's interesting when Nathan's calibration sliders are.
Yeah, it's just garbage, isn't it? But I like garbage.
Yeah. Garbage in, garbage out. Who cares? So we might have slapped his wife once or twice or didn't. It's not the end of the world, but it is to him, though.
Indeed, he do.
But we don't condone that on the show.
No, but who really cares? It's like, it's a police matter, is it not?
Well, no, it was never made a police matter. The reason it's interesting, maybe Adam will speak to this because he seemed to allude to this sentiment earlier, is because he's a guy, he's been Me Too'd into oblivion, basically, by believe all women. That's basically the situation. If you claim a guy has hit you, you're expected by the modern standard to believe that that is the case, to believe it's true. And that's precisely what has happened in this instance. You know, she's come up with quite a far-fetched story now I know the ins and outs of it, and just expected to be believed. And the embellishment is unreal. It started off with maybe 3 accounts that she said had happened. By the end, there's like 13, 14, 15 different accounts. She's embellished it massively. And the level of embellishment is ludicrous. You know, she's literally being dragged by a hair through broken glass in some of these instances. And you're like, what? And then the following day she'll be on the James Corden show, like the Late Late Show, with full studio lighting on her, without a mark on her, when she's claiming the previous day she's got a broken nose and broken cheek, and, you know, it's just ludicrous. I mean, it is pathetic, but that's just my take on it based on a fairly intricate knowledge of it, having watched it for about 3 years.
But that's its plus point for me. You know, nobody's watching this thinking, oh, you know, poor old Amber. You know what I mean? We're all seeing it, that it's a very abusive household from both people. Some more abusive from one side than the other. And it's that disparity of treatment, disparity of what punishment there should be, and disparity of believability. And that's the most important thing. Just because she's a woman and she's accusing a man, the way the media fawned and focused is very interesting. And it's very interesting now where the apparent lies are coming out that the same level isn't attached to it. And the same focus on what she's done, which is really bad domestic abuse, but there's no equivalent treatment of her. That's what I'm finding interesting, and what I think is good, is it's just laying out truths there, and the public can see it. And that's the best thing for me. That it's being recognised that, irrespective of evidence, if a woman's saying something against a man, weak evidence is sufficient. And in the long term, it's false claims like this that undo the ability to get real, genuine rapes to court, because all the damage cases like this do, which is to have a blatantly lying person, it shouldn't have got to court with this evidence, should it? It shouldn't be allowed to get there. It's that farcical.
Exactly. That's what makes it the most interesting. The fact that the standards are so skewed, and we said it earlier in the show, actually, when we talked about this, which is to say, if the situation was reversed, it'd just be locked up immediately. And people would have been...
Slick, though.
people would have been looking at it with a different light and maybe reporting it on his behalf, and the Rozzers would have actually come round to arrest him if it was him doing what she has done. But instead, what seems like a fairly decent, heartfelt guy has been Me Too'd into the depths of oblivion just purely based on hearsay. And then when you look into the hearsay, the problem with it is she's not smart enough to have actually punched herself in the face and given herself a real bruise. So she's clearly put it on with makeup. I'm saying that, like, how dare you make such comments? Well, based on what's been shown so far, even in trial, it seems to me that the day after, there's nothing wrong with her. And everybody who's looked at her, one guy in particular who got within a few inches of her face after she literally said, "He's hit me," and he was like, the guy in question's like, "Where?" She's like, "Here." She sticks her face out to offer it up for examination, and the guy looks all over her face and goes, "There's not a mark on you, love." So literally telling her there's no marks on her, and then makes an excuse on her behalf. Well, obviously your beauty's, for the one half of your face is making up for the other half or something like that. But you're like, these are people that are seemingly honest, reasonable people describing absolutely nothing like what she's describing. Contrast that with, he's thrown a remote and a phone at my face and smashed bottles around and dragged me through the broken glass and smacked my head against a bed and tore hair out. You're like, whoa, man, I'd expect a hospital visit after that. But no, she goes on national TV under massive lights. You're like, this is just a blatant lie. But yet what? Cancel him for it? What? What's going on? How is this even happening? How has this even got to court? I can't quite believe it. But it is. That's where it's at. Unbelievable, yeah. Adam, good summary.
This is how the general public feel. I don't think there's many out there that hold an opposing opinion. So what's interesting is that juxtaposition. If you speak to anybody, there's the opinion we're hearing here. Yet, once again, the media is demonstrating, I think, and this is the good thing, they're openly demonstrating how much they lie and misrepresent the truth to us. And that's being demonstrated to the general sheeple now. I don't think there's anybody sitting there thinking Johnny Depp's a wife beater.
My wife does. He asked him one question, and Johnny said, "Was that after she chopped my finger?" Or something to that effect. I was like,
yes,
slick.
Indeed. There's
What
been
did
a
you
couple
think
of
her then, Neil?
Well,
If you
he
think,
kind of not.
I'm not trying to defend him but it sounds to me that he's a bigger victim of domestic abuse than she is.
I agree.
And that's what's interesting, that his domestic abuse is derided.
And the thing is, he was married for what, 25 years or something? He's had so many years where he never touched a woman, and they could even testify to it. And all of a sudden, at 50, he becomes this tyrant wife beater. I don't know.
That's a crap defense. Absolutely useless. He's never killed anybody before.
I'm just saying. I mean, your character follows you. You just don't become a wife beater.
No, I agree. From a character point of view, they've built up that narrative. But as a defense, it's useless. It doesn't mean anything. But on the other hand, when you're looking at preponderance of evidence in that regard, you go, where are the pictures of somebody with injuries? Well, there's lots of pictures of Johnny with actual injuries and people around him who are prepared to testify that they were so concerned about the injuries, they have taken photographs of them. And then you cut to Amber with a couple of what look like self-inflicted injuries on her arm, saying, yeah, he hit me and dragged me through glass. You're like, oh, really? Why do they look like they're about 5 weeks old then? And where's that bruise on your face gone? Didn't you have a broken nose? Yeah, it's just ludicrous. And like I say, meanwhile, there's Johnny Depp showing he's had his finger chopped off and, bruises on his face and literal stuff that people are photographing of him because he's got damage.
She stuck the ice cream in his hand while he was nodding out and took a photo of him nodded out with the ice cream spilled on the couch. And he even said it. He goes, well, she gave me the ice cream when I was on the nod. She knew what was going to happen.
Right. I mean, there's some crazy stuff that's alleged to have happened. She's alleged to have stubbed a cigarette out on him and various other things like that. I mean, I don't know if any of this is true. This is what's being debated about or argued about in court right now, like literally right now, actually. So it's an interesting subject because of the gross imbalance in terms of how people will be accepted, and it's like if the sentiment that Amber Heard puts across and has used with the Me Too movement was to be taken literally, then why hasn't it automatically been applied to everything Johnny Depp has said? It's just ludicrous because of that hypocrisy. Like, okay, you're saying believe it all. Well, believe all what Johnny says then. What you don't want to, well, that makes no sense, does it? Clearly, that's nonsense.
There is a segue from this. Sorry, Nathan, do you want to say something else?
How dare you segue away from the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial?
Yeah, it's something that Eli said. Yeah, you can come back to it if you like. It's your show. You can do what you want. But Eli was talking about his little his moment with Zanuck yesterday, right? And Zanuck's tactics. Now, Bev Try Thinking has spent a long time arguing with the ballers that horizontal and level are the same thing. So much so that when he first came out, he was accused of being of abusing his child, right, his autistic child, because he was teaching him that level and horizontal were the same thing. He was accused by Fight the Flat Earth of being a child abuser because he taught his child that level and horizontal were the same thing. Publicly accused of that. Now, sorry.
Brian, you okay?
He was a good man. He'll be greatly missed.
I'm back. I got this little crumb in my throat, sorry. But this is the irony. Bev thinks the sextant is stupid. He does admit it's an angle measuring device. No interest in the argument whatsoever. Yet it's detailed because Eli got the information and the citations or whatever he got, that the bubble sextant the bubble sextant creates horizontal through the use of the bubble, and the horizontal is what the angle is taken off. So the very thing that Bev Try Thinking considers to be a load of rubbish is the very thing that proves his point. I don't, to me, that's kind of ironic.
Yeah.
I don't think Bev's even got to the point of knowing about the bubble part of the sex. I don't know if he knows that much of the argument.
Yeah, because he won't address it. He won't have to do with the argument. He just puts it down without having an understanding of it. Yet within that argument, there is not just the marine sextant. There is also the marine sextant with the use of an artificial horizon, which does the same thing. But then you have the bubble sextant proving that a bubble level creates a horizontal, because that's how they create the horizontal for celestial navigation in an airplane with a bubble sextant. It's the use of the bubble that creates the horizontal. Level and horizontal are the same thing, otherwise celestial navigation wouldn't work. So either level and horizontal are the same thing and celestial navigation does work, or level and horizontal are not the same thing and celestial navigation doesn't work. There's only two choices. So
has anyone with a really good grasp of the sextant argument actually talked to Bev? Because the one time I've heard someone talking to him about it, they weren't doing a good job.
I have.
Yeah, me.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, bummer.
Yeah,
Still
me
would
and
love
Brian.
to hear that.
Sorry, Nathan?
I'm just saying yes. You and I have both talked to Bev about the sextant. His attitude to me was, you can't do anything with an angle. And I asked him if he understood what a fix was, and he didn't know what I was talking about. He also declared that celestial navigation and triangulation isn't used to find your location. That was his declaration when I spoke to him about it. In other words, fundamentally, he doesn't understand what it's for.
And you shouldn't get lost and you shouldn't get lost at sea, Nathan. If you got a navigator, you shouldn't be lost at sea. Don't forget that part.
Yeah, that was basically how the discussion went. So I was explaining, if you're lost at sea, what do you do then? He's like, well, you shouldn't be lost at sea. I was like, but what would you do? He's like, well, you'd have a crap navigator if you got lost. So I said, well, if you're suggesting that you were out at sea and you got lost, you would shout at your navigator while everyone died. Me, I'd get out a sextant, hope that I got an almanac, and then figure out where my fix was.
It seems to me that all he's looking at is an angle, but he's forgetting that you have a nautical almanac or an air almanac to use, where you know where the star's GP is at the exact hour, moment, and second of your sighting of the angle of the star to where you are using the horizontal base, the baseline that has to be straight. So of itself, an angle measurement without the knowledge of what star you're looking at, where it's at, what time you sighted it, and going through the tables, he's missing that whole second part.
Well, he's not thinking things through, because
you can do fuck all with a angle. It's not completely wrong, because you need a watch and an almanac too.
Yeah, and then you can find out where you are.
I don't see how that's an argument.
Yeah, I don't either.
Do fuck all with an angle, and then people are doing much more than fuck all with an angle. So what?
That's correct.
I don't understand.
Yeah. I mean,
what's the point?
With the angle, you can
saying
prove
that.
the Earth is flat.
The converse.
Well, how did you get the
what was
angle
that?
in the first place?
We got a bever.
No, relax. I'm just saying, like, how did you get the angle in the first place?
The converse.
Well, what can you do without the angle?
Is that you without the angle can't do celestial navigation. So you can word it whichever way you want, trying to be clever. But the reality is, you need an angle to do celestial navigation if you're lost at sea. It's a strange defense, because it's not really.
Yeah, that's weird.
This guy just said it doesn't prove flat Earth. I think it does.
Right, there's no.
Is that what he said?
No, I said you can't do celestial navigation with just an angle, but you can prove the Earth is flat with it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For anyone listening out there who doesn't know this, you get lost at sea when if you don't have GPS and things like we have now. But when you had if you just had celestial navigation with a sextant and whatever, you get lost at sea. If there's a storm, you're blown off course. You don't know where you are. That's when you're lost at sea. It's not that your navigator is bad. You can't navigate using that system, that older system with the sextant, when the wind and waves are blowing you in every direction. How are you supposed to hold the direction? You don't know where even you are. You're being spun around. Anyone who has been ever at sea in rough weather would understand this.
If anyone does any kind of just basic reading, you find that ships would never wander off to sea. They would stay close to shorelines because they were afraid of getting lost at sea, until it came to the idea that, hey, we can use the stars at sea if we know a little bit about angles and where those stars are at, and we can govern ourselves using the sky map. And that's the whole point, is to know where you, the observer, are in relationship to that star, but you got to know where that star is directly at the zenith position of the star, the GP, where you can do the tables.
It's obvious Gilligan and the skipper did not have a sextant.
Amber Heard had a sextant. She'd have just thrown it at his head, wouldn't she?
It would have been the professor who would have designed the sextant on Gilligan's Island.
I don't know, Marianne.
Not much use
to me,
without a
it's
boat,
always
though,
been
eh?
Marianne.
Not much use without a boat, you say?
Yeah. They were
That's
stuck
true.
on the island, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they could work out where they were, but they weren't going anywhere.
I wouldn't want to be lost at sea with a baller there, right? Can you imagine the ship's captain's like, oh, okay, let me get my sextant. And then the baller's like, oh, wait, let me do that properly. And he picks up the sextant out of his hands and throws it overboard. You got to measure it from the center of Earth.
No, he picks it up, Owen, and
Thanks.
shouts at his navigator until his navigator knows what he's doing.
With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video. Stay tuned if you're watching on a Premiering stream.
What a lovely day!